Hello, this is Jim Schaefer, host and executive producer of Rip Rap, the academic book television program. We have a special program today, and we're featuring the 2006 Ann Arbor Book Festival, and then we're also going to talk about our longevity as a program, because we're into our 9th year and have produced over 100 30-minute programs, which is quite a landmark for television series. One of the main emphases with these book festivals is the issue of literacy. We usually feature a book, and our book today is going to be the literacy guide that the book festival has been publishing, because it's so important for people to learn how to read with each other. In the literacy guide this year, there were some very interesting statistics that I'd like to have you be aware of. For example, 9 out of 10 children who are poor readers in the 1st grade have the probability of being poor readers in the 4th grade. 75% of poor readers who are not helped prior to age 9 will continue to have reading difficulties through high school. If parents are functionally illiterate, the child is twice as likely as peers to be as well. 50% of the unemployed are functionally illiterate. 44% of Americans do not read one book a year. 27% of Army enlistees can read training manuals written at the 7th grade level. 21 to 23% of adults, that's 44 to 46 million people, demonstrate skills at the lowest level of proficiency. With these statistics in mind, I'd like to remind you that cultivating literacy in everyone is so important. In Washtenaw County, we have the Washtenaw County Literacy Organization, and I encourage you to join and become involved. The only way that people become literate is when they read stories to other people and other people read stories back to them. Now on to the book festival. Rip Rap began as a way to encourage and stimulate literacy in terms of academic literature. So we were very happy to be participating with all 3 of the book festivals that occurred so far. We've been in the 2004, 2005, and the 2006. The importance of these festivals, that celebrating the word and reading the word, and those who write the word, publish it, and sell it, is so important. So I'd like to have you listen to an interview that we did with Evans Young, who's been deeply involved with this whole organization from the beginning. Perhaps you let our viewers know why the university feels an event like this is so important and worthy of its support.
Well, Jim, I'm the president of the board of directors for the Ann Arbor Book Festival, and I'm actually not representing the university per se in any kind of formal role, but we have quite a few University of Michigan people on the board. We're all there as volunteers, I think, because we're interested in books and what they mean for the community. I've lived in Ann Arbor since 1976, and it was only until this past year that I decided I'm really from Ann Arbor, just to see everybody put out that kind of effort to make a great event happen. The kinds of things that really got me excited, you know, when I saw the baby carriages and families there,
right.
For me that was a success. When I saw Cat in the Hat and Wild Thing, that was pretty good too. In addition, we had the scholars for a Brown v. Board of Education. It was the 50th anniversary
right.
Of that Supreme Court decision on desegregating public schools. So we had a panel on that was really great. Everybody's favorite, I think, was the book that changed my life, where Mary Sue Coleman was there, Lloyd Carr was there,
right.
Josie Parker from the library was there, Charlie Baxter was there, Thaddeus Moss was there, I think. So those kinds of things just made it really a great deal of fun. There was a mind, body, and spirit pavilion, so that brought me back to the 60s a little bit. There was a comic book, I would call it, but a what do they call them? Graphic novel
Right.
Exhibit booth as well. The University of Michigan Press was there and had a glorious time. You know, university presses are by and large in trouble these days, but they were happy to be there, and they were selling quite a few of the U of M Press books too.
Yeah, we dropped by there. They were quite busy.
Yeah, Yep, they're really pleased.
And that's
They'll
so
be back
much fun
again.
to have
Yeah.
that actually out in the public
Yeah,
space.
yeah.
That's
Now that was just on the site itself. Now, we also had a book tour of Malloy Printing to see how this book was made,
right.
and there was a reception for some of the authors at that time too. I went to a technical high school myself, so seeing anything with big machines is always a thrill for me. There was also a training for people who are interested in teaching literacy, and a literacy resource guidebook was produced as a result.
Then I'd also like to have you listen to an interview we did with Carl Port. Carl is more commonly known as the owner of the Shaman Drum Bookstore on State Street in Ann Arbor. But he has a much larger role in terms of leadership. Part of that leadership was being a key dynamo behind getting the book festival going. And we have an interview with him, which we'll now play. Welcome to Rip Rap, Carl. It's so wonderful to have you on this program. I mean, that's just a personal thing for me, because when we first were talking about starting the program, you and I had many, many discussions about that. And fortunately, you didn't tell me until later that you really wondered if we ever get it off the ground. We did that. And then you've had this role of starting things off with book projects, and one of them, of course, was the Ann Arbor Book Festival this year. And what was your thinking? How did this get going? How did this all come together? Because we had talked like 5 years ago about doing it. But
Right.
What came together this year?
Well, I think that this is, especially with the success of Ann Arbor Reads, I thought that we could build on that and finally do a book fair. This is, as everyone knows, this is Ann Arbor is the home of one of the top 10 public universities in the United States, if not the world. It's a community that is committed to, I think, books and the written word. And so it's time that they're doing book fairs around the country. And I thought that Ann Arbor, in terms of the Midwest, that we're the perfect community to have this book fair in.
Yeah, we've been doing the art fairs.
Right,
It's
exactly.
logical that
No, that's
with
right.
all these bookstores
Yeah,
that
and you can also build on the art fair, because you start talking about an art fair or book fair, and everybody knows what you're talking about already. So it's not as if you're inventing this, out of the air.
And this, the way you did it, I mean, I know you work both as community, but it showed real leadership. But also there was that community aspect. There were all these people. There were
Right.
Borders and little professor bookstores and all these people and it made so wonderful.
Right. Also the public library, central players in this. And I think that Ann Arbor is a community where you're in the university, and you can't, it's very, process is very important. We originally thought about possibly seeing this as a State Street event. But that's very quickly we realized that, in terms of mobilizing the entire community, that we wanted to not have any sort of single ownership, but we wanted to have it the sense of everybody owning into this, or having the possibility of owning into this.
When you had Washington literacy involved,
That's
and
right.
Literacy was a
Very central players.
part of it.
And it was always our feeling that we wanted to make this sustainable. And I think that we're, a couple of years away from the 50th anniversary of the Ann Arbor Street Art Fair. The model was always that we'd like to keep this going, that this was the first of what we hope are many book fairs in the future.
We'd also like to share some scenes from the past 3 years of the book festivals that we've attended and had a booth at.
And they we have time penalty on this one. Please people follow rules. What's the score right there?
One of the things you readily will see is that there are people really excited about books. There's huge numbers of books. In fact, we have a scene we'll show you of literally a wall of books where people were looking at them.
I just came out.
there's poetry readings.
Slip to the stop 2 miles from your crib. Duck into the corner store, blow 49 cents on chewing gum, and seriously, when the heck did you start thinking about your skank breath? You swing solo onto the bus, pop a torn up squats, and all of a sudden, you're one of those slow-mo folks. No longer a cog in the great goofball wheel, laughing too loud, spitting foul as if curse words collect taxes from your tongue.
There's entertainment like puppet shows.
There are 60 seconds
Maybe
in a
over
minute,
here,
60
direct front
minutes
line.
in an hour, 24 hours in a day. That would mean there are 31,536,000 seconds in a year. Whoa!
And there's conversations you can get into with people you've never met. Who and you are?
Hi. Let me butt myself.
Do what you can. It's up here. It's up here. Well, we got mic cord problems.
It's like me with my knitting.
There we go. All right, so WEMU is here, and you're here because at the Ann Arbor Book Festival because
We are sponsoring the poetry tent, although we're not located at the poetry tent because we want to be able to talk to people that come and they want to be able to listen, have people listen. But we're really, really happy to be a sponsor of the Ann Arbor Book Festival and the poetry tent. I'm Mary Catherine Smith. I'm host of Brazilian Soul on 89.1. We have James Cornish right here, another music host, the host of The Outside Within. Bill Harris, who is what is
Local web geek.
Local web geek. DJ McLeod, one of our producers, and newly minted graduate of Eastern Michigan University. He's been with us for a couple years now.
So who are some of the people who are at the poetry?
I have no
idea.
haven't been down there yet.
Famous people for sure.
I hope so. I haven't been down there yet this year.
And you're fitted up. All the Edward Murrow.
Yeah, we have a couple of NPR-related books here. Bob Edwards' recent book about Edward R. Murrow. Mo Rocca, who is one of the panelists on Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, All the President's Pets, name of his book. Bob Edwards actually has a fairly new program. We broadcast it on Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. He does incredible interviews. We have Terry Gross's book, All I Did Was Ask, about her interviews, the interviews that she's done over the years. And another book we have for folks available is Time Spent Listening, that was done on the radio station, the history of WEMU and folks at the station. We're one of the only jazz stations left in the country, true jazz stations. So
Is that right?
yeah, it's
Seven.
Seven?
Seven.
Seven.
One of 7 jazz stations left in the United States.
KCSM.
And we're really
BGO.
want to thank all of our supporters, the donors, but the Ann Arbor community, the Ypsilanti community, for supporting the station and keeping jazz alive and making it possible for us then to go out and support wonderful events like the book festival.
Television program Academic Books.
Oh, okay.
And each year we do a program on
Yeah.
on the book festival. Bring it around like this.
So you have a back issue I could grab?
Yes. You take this one.
Okay.
That's a current issue.
So the question we're asking people is, why are you at this book festival?
Well, we were invited by Orchid, which is one of the literary journals in town, and they wanted to get a bunch of the literary journals in the Midwest together. Well, actually beyond the Midwest, because there's some from all over.
New York,
You guys are
San
in
Francisco.
California, and
California.
yeah, and they're in New York. We're in Ohio, because we want to publicize literary magazines.
Oh, and what's your name? I didn't get that.
Oh, my name is Meg Gallipo.
Okay, I'm Jim Schaefer. I don't normally do on-the-street interviews, so, and we really look like it, struggling with our rain.
Well, you look professional.
Yeah, well, mainly because I got a microphone in my hand. And first time I've tried a waterproof thing on the camera and all that.
Oh my.
We normally do a much more steady thing.
Yeah.
So, what's your magazine here?
We're the Center for the Art of Translation. We publish Two Lines, which is a journal of world literature translated to English.
Really?
Yes.
That's a tough job. Because one of my main gripes is just translation. Like one of my favorite poets is Pablo Neruda,
Right, exactly.
whose works have suffered from inadequately realized potential.
That's correct. With all translations, there's sort of the direct translation, which can be more word for word, and what we're doing is more literary translation, which tries to capture the piece and the essence of the rhythm and the music, and so
Which requires interpretation.
it does require interpretation. Yes.
Large amounts, hopefully.
Yes, although I think a lot of the authors and translators that we work with, sometimes they work together so that they're capturing the essence of what the author intended. And then they may have studied or worked with a widow or something like that and looked at their personal libraries, notes and things to find out really what was intended by the author. So they try as much as possible to keep it accurate.
So do you publish the native language alongside the translated?
Yes, side-by-side format.
Only way to go.
Yeah, we love it. We find it an art form as well as, really pleasurable to read. So
what languages have you done this with?
Oh, well, we've published in 55 languages. We have over 55. We have a several-page piece here that shows all of the languages over the years, and we've been around since about the mid-90s. So, but everything from rare languages to our more common, Spanish, German, French. Yeah.
It was really painful. Always bothered me with Neruda's stuff. Some of it was so. You want to go. And then some of it's quite lovely. I mean, there are a couple of translators that did a really nice job. But, yeah.
And you have to look for several translations sometimes. If there's something that's not speaking to you, typically it's translated by a few people. Although sometimes one translator will have the rights for a person's work, and then it is, yes, painful at times.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your name is?
Mary Callaghan.
Mary Callaghan. You're with Terrace Press?
Uh-huh.
And
My
Terrace.
dad wrote that book, Boy Soldier.
Oh, we'll have to talk to Dad, too. And you are?
I am Terry McLogan, the author's wife.
The author's wife.
Right.
Then we'll talk to the authors, too.
Okay, good. Okay, cool. Thanks.
And you wrote the book?
I wrote this book, Boy Soldier Coming of Age During World War II.
And who might this be about?
This is about me.
About you?
I was an 18-year-old draftee.
18 years old.
I had tried to get in the Navy and the Air Force, rejected by both of them. Went to college for a half a year and then was drafted. They put me in the Army. They said, we don't care whether you can tell red or from green, because I'd been rejected for color perception. So
Is this your uniform here?
Yes, I used to wear this uniform. I was a 140-pound boy. Notice the size of the uniform. You're now looking at a 180-pound fully grown man, so I can't even button it.
But that's only 40 pounds. Is this your rifle? Where'd you get this?
This rifle is a Japanese rifle with a bayonet. It's a war souvenir.
So you've been talking to people about selling your book here.
Yep, I sold a few of them.
Hi, here's Vicky. Vicky, you want to be on television?
I'm not sure I do, but...
This is Vicki Lawrence. Vicky's a wonderful editor, and Jim teaches writing at Washtenaw. And he worked with academic books.
Oh, great.
So
So I just came, I'm speaking at 4.
Yes, I know. I'm in the booth next to you, so I'm going to get to hear you.
What booth is that?
We're right over here. I'm here with the
we should
literary
identify that you're Harold Rothbard. Gotta get the name part.
Okay.
Yes.
And Vicki Lawrence.
Vicki Lawrence. I'm managing editor of the Michigan Quarterly Review.
Yeah.
And I'm here with the literary journals. And we've got a big section here. There's about, a dozen, 15 journals here. So.
Lawrence.
Yeah, Lawrence Goldstein.
So your book is about Brooklyn Boy, right?
I'll let you talk about that. I'm looking forward to hearing you read later on.
Okay, I'll read a little bit.
Just talking. This is sort of
okay.
Casual.
Okay. My name is Harold Rothbard. I'm the author of Brooklyn Boy. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. And I'm a big believer in oral and written history. And at the present time, I'm the director of the Personal History Project, in which I go around the United States encouraging people to write their personal histories. And I decided, I've been doing that for about 10 years, and I decided that since I've been encouraging people to write their own personal history, that I should be a good model. So I put out this particular book that you can see. It's a story of a young boy myself namely, who grew up in extreme poverty in Brooklyn, New York, and eventually became the first person in Ann Arbor city history to become assistant city administrator.
Is that right?
Yes, I served with 6 different mayors, starting with Robert Harris in 1969.
That goes back a ways.
Yeah, it sure does, and it was wonderful. I came here to Michigan on a graduate school scholarship, and in 1969 I had the choice to work for 2 mayors, the mayor of New York and the mayor of Ann Arbor. And I looked around and said, this is a wonderful place, so I picked Ann Arbor. And I love it. It's a great
This is
town.
sort of the New York of the Midwest, I think.
That's true. That's true. It's culturally a great place, and my friends often say to me, "What are you doing in that small town in the Midwest?" And I've given this answer 1,000 times, Jim. It's basically you wouldn't have all the time or money to do everything in this town. So I'm really trying to encourage people to write history. I believe it's so important. And it's interesting to me, since my book has been out in January, I've had calls from all over the United States, often from people I don't know, who have told me how much it's encouraged them to write.
I think that's great. Put together their personal narratives.
I think it's so important, and the payoffs really are often unanticipated. I've had my children tell me that there are things about me that they never knew, because you don't sit down with the kid and say, let me tell you when I was a great construction engineer in the city of New York and I built housing for 30,000 people. Let me tell you when I was in a show, Fiddler on the Roof, with the Ann Arbor Civic Theater. You just don't sit down and talk to a person like that. But in the book, I was able to do it.
So this is one of those questions, but it does come to mind. What was something big that you gained an insight into yourself from doing this kind of a project?
I think the most important thing that I gained was to look how life is really an adventure. And when I eventually wrote 400 mini stories, as I call them, 2 or 3 page stories, and only had published 140 of them. I think the lesson I've learned is that there are certain things that I should have done, the would have, could have, should have principle. But there's a sense, the main thing I learned is to rejoice in life and the things that have been done, that have been accomplished. And I hope really that the book isn't intended to be a memoir of me. It's really to encourage people to go out and write their own story. And the most common feedback I've gotten from people that have called me throughout the country is, I'm going to sit down and do the same thing. And that's really a sense of joy.
Great. You said this personal, was it history project?
Yes.
How is that set up?
Well, I created it and I got some private funding to do it. So now I have some resources to encourage people. And basically when I first got started, what I used to do was I used to go to Borders or some stationery store and I would meet people and just give them a 250-page lined book, blank, and I'd say, your stories are interesting, here, write it, and here's my incentive for you. I would just give people these books from Borders and encourage them to write.
Well, when I teach writing, I don't assign topics for the same reason, because that's part of the writing process, is to find out what it is that how your voice will come up and out.
That's true. And I would say this, I started traveling when I was about 10 years old. I had an interest in cities, having grown up in the largest city in the country, and I was able to travel as a very young child, and everywhere I went, I would meet interesting people. Now the dilemma is young kids can't travel today because you need insurance policies for Greyhound bus or you need a parent to go with you. So I learned a lot about people. I would meet interesting people, and I've come to what I call the Harold Rothbard truism. Every person is interesting. And the corollary to that is every person's story is interesting. So I want people to really sit down and think about their experiences and write them, because they're fascinating. They really, truly are. I haven't met one person that didn't have an interesting story. And I would say that in recent years I've talked to over 2,000 people.
Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you very much.
Again, Rip Rap's involvement with the book festival is part of our ongoing commitment to enhancing literacy at all levels, but predominantly academic. Putting on a television program like this takes an enormous amount of effort. We need to review books, we need to select them, we need to make the arrangements with the author in order to do the interview, then we need to edit the finished product and get it into the broadcast mode. It takes hours and hours of careful editing. One of the things we've done over the years, we take great pride that we follow the contours of the discussion. Every author receives 3 to 5 talking points before the interview, so that he or she is informed about what we're interested in, and then, like I said, we follow the contours of the interview. We feel that our effort is worth it because it does help academic authors, and that's why we started this program and continue it. So I'd like to go through with you some of the exciting experiences we've had as we've done these interviews, which have been pretty diverse. One of the proudest ones we have is with Robert Haas, the former U.S. Poet Laureate. Robert Haas was an interesting interview because he was here for another occasion at the University of Michigan, and we were quite gratefully agreed to be interviewed. He is a very eloquent poet in his own right. The other poet laureates have been Ted Kooser, and now, just recently announced, is Donald Hall, who used to be a professor at the University of Michigan and now lives in his ancestral home in New Hampshire. If you want to check us out more, then check out our website, riprap.org, rip.org. We're working on ways to have downloadable programs, and we're also working out ways to have a book blog where you can see the books as they come in, and then we review them and rate them. Thank you for watching. This has been our version of what we saw with the 2006 Ann Arbor Book Festival and our reflections on what it's been like for the past 9 years doing this series. Thank you.